Laura Vitale. On this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I'm going to show you how to make a caramelized onion focaccia. It's delicious and so easy and simple. It uses my basic focaccia bread recipe, which if you haven't already seen from one of my very previous episodes, go ahead and check it out. But today we're going to make one that's topped with caramelized onions. It's really, really good and simple. Now let me take you over the ingredients so we can get started. You're going to need some thinly sliced onions, unsalted butter, fresh thyme, some active dry yeast, some sugar, warm water, salt, extra virgin olive oil, and flour, which I have in my standing mixer. Now, you're going to need a couple extra ingredients, which once we're there, I'm going to show you what those are. But for now, let's get started on making the dough, which is really the most, no, I wouldn't say time consuming, but it just takes the longest time because it has to rise a couple times, so we want to get that out of the way. Now in this bowl, I'm going to add in my warm water, which is about 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's super important that your water is warm, otherwise you will not activate your yeast and then it won't work. I'm going to sprinkle my yeast over it with a little pinch of sugar because the yeast likes to feed off something and sugar works really well. So I'm going to give that a stir. And I'm just going to let this sit here for about 3 minutes or so, or until you start to see it become nice and foamy. That's how you know your yeast is activated. Now I know a bunch of you might ask if you can do this recipe without yeast, and unfortunately you cannot. You have to use some yeast in order to make most bread recipes, and this one you need yeast. And you just want to make sure that you proof it right. A few things can go wrong. If your water's too cold, it's not going to proof your yeast. If the water's too hot, it's going to kill it. It won't proof. So you want to make sure that your water is at the perfect temperature. Take like a candy thermometer, check it if you need to. If it's 115, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, you'll be in business. Let that foam and I'll show you what to do next. My yeast is looking perfect, but before I get to that, I want to add in my sugar to my flour with a good pinch of salt. It's really, really important that you add salt. I think salt is the one ingredient in bread that if you don't add it, you'll taste it. And you're going to add a good amount of extra virgin olive oil. Crucial when you're making focaccia. I mean, you must. It looks good. You're looking for about a 1/4 cup. I'm just going to mix those together just to get them started, and then I'll add in my yeast mixture. Put that down. I'm going to give that a little mix. Now we're going to add in our yeast, which is proofed beautifully. All right, pull this up. Mix it until it comes together, and then you're going to let it go. I'm going to mix it a little bit like medium-high speed until it comes together. Then I'm going to reduce the speed to about medium. I'm going to let them mix for about 10 minutes or until you have a really smooth ball of dough, and then I will show you what it looks like. That looks good. You can see the dough is very, very smooth. This dough works every single time. No matter what topping you want to put on it, it just works. Just pull it together into a nice ball like that. You can pinch the bottom if you want to. And what I have here is an oiled bowl that I just oiled with some olive oil. I'm just going to cover it all like that. You want to make sure that's oil so it doesn't form any kind of skin on the top. Wipe my hands. And I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap, and this is going to go somewhere warm without any drafts. And I've said this a million times that the place for me is in the microwave, but of course you don't want to turn your microwave on, and that's going to stay in there for a good hour or until it's doubled in volume. And in the meantime, I'm going to clean up and we'll get started on the onions. Now for our onions, I've got some olive oil preheating in a large skillet over about medium heat, and to that I'm going to add in a little bit of butter, and this is going to give the onions a really sort of sweet and taste, obviously, but also makes them, it just helps with the caramelization and with the flavor like you wouldn't believe. And anytime I'm caramelizing onions like to perfection, I always do this step. I never skip it because I think it makes a huge difference. So got a little bit of butter, I've got olive oil. Olive oil always for flavor as well, is the fact that it doesn't burn as quickly as butter does. I'm going to add in the onions. These are not going to sizzle right away because these need to cook for a long time. Over about medium-low heat, these are going to cook for a good maybe 40 minutes or so, or until they're a deep golden brown color. They'll shrink up a bit, and that's what you want. I'm also going to add in my fresh thyme now because I want it all to kind of cook together, and season them with some salt and pepper. And then just let them cook for about 40 to 45 minutes or until, like I said, they've developed a really good color and they've gotten super soft, which is really, really important. And I'll show you what they look like once they're there. My dough has beautifully risen here. Let's get this off. Look at that. Now that is perfect. Now before we get working on that, you want to get a jelly roll pan or like a 15, what is this? A 15 by 10 inch pan. Get it nicely oiled with some olive oil. It's important so it doesn't stick and also creates a beautiful golden brown crust. And I've got some thinly sliced garlic, fresh rosemary, salt and pepper, and a little bit more olive oil. My onions are cooling in the background. They're done. They're beautifully caramelized, so they're just hanging out. So let's work on this dough. I'm going to punch it down or push it down. I'm going to get it out of here. And then I'm going to stretch it out. You don't need a rolling pin for this. You just need your hands and you need to stretch this as best as you can. Pull it if you need to. Trust me, it's foolproof. This dough, you cannot go wrong. You can try to go wrong, but you won't because it's just that simple. I mean, look at that. And now you got to make all these little dimples in here because that's what focaccia is known for. The oven's preheated to 400, so get that ready. This does have to rise a little bit more, another maybe 30 minutes or so. So now that that's ready, I'm going to drizzle a little olive oil on top for flavor and color, of course. I'm going to take these cloves of garlic, well, it's actually 2 cloves that I've sliced thinly. And I'm just going to put them around, distribute them nicely. Now, you could add a ton more garlic, and I do in my regular focaccia recipe, but you know, I don't want all the flavor to come from the garlic. I do want the caramelized onions to get a little bit of the spotlight too. So that's why I'm only going with just a couple of cloves and slicing them really nice and thin. Actually going to spread these out a bit more. And then I have, there you go, and then I have some fresh rosemary, which I'm just going to strip from the stem and put them on top like that. I think that's really crispy in the oven. Gives it great, great flavor. Classic combination. That's good. I'm going to go with a lot less, but I do love rosemary. Salt and pepper. You could use some coarse salt. I'm just using regular fine salt because that's just what's out. Don't go too crazy though. All right, now you can cover this with plastic wrap if you want to. I'm going to use a lint-free towel, and I'm going to put this somewhere warm again and let it rise for only about 35 to 40 minutes or until you can see that's doubled up quite a bit. And then we'll go into doing the last step before it goes into the oven. Look at that. Now that is perfect. Now I've got my cold caramelized onions. I'm just going to put them all over the top, really. You just want to make sure you cover as much of the surface as possible, but you don't want the whole thing to be covered because then it can be a little overpowering because they are very, very sweet. When you caramelize onions, they draw out all their sugars and become super sweet. So 2 large onions did the trick beautifully. So just don't overdo it because sometimes too much of a good thing can be a little much. That looks perfect. Now I'm going to take some Parmigiano and I'm going to grate all over the top. Just cover the surface, really. Super nutty, and I love it against the sweet onions and that earthy rosemary. It's like, once this is all baked together, it's like heaven in your mouth, pretty much. Now this is going to go into my preheated oven at 400. It bakes best in the lower rack just because it gets that beautiful golden brown color at the bottom and it gets super crispy. It'll be in there for about 20 to 25 minutes and then we'll let it cool completely and we'll be ready to serve it. My focaccia baked for about 25 minutes. I let it cool for quite a bit and now I'm just going to slide it out. It's that easy. And look at that. It's like meant for my cutting board. I'm going to take half of this. Put it right here. Oven's turning off. I'm just going to cut this into large chunks. Smells divine. You can really smell the rosemary. I'm actually just going to give in to this. No, I want this one. No, I'll take this one. You can really smell the rosemary and the onions. Look how fluffy that is. Oh, look. I'm not kidding. Look at that. It's fluffy. The bottom's got a nice golden crust. You can top this with whatever you want. Just promise me one thing. Go to laurainthekitchen.com to get my basic focaccia bread recipe, or this recipe. I'll have it written twice because it's that good. It deserves to be written many, many more times with different toppings. Top it how you want to. Post a picture on my Facebook. Show me the fluffiness, because if there's no fluffiness, you didn't let it rise properly. Hope you enjoy spending time with me, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye-bye.